All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I think we have some parents in person that are coming in right now, so we'll just give them a second to get in here. But thank you all for being here. My name is Mr. Hudak. I'm the seventh and eighth grade English teacher. I'm going to have the other teachers introduce themselves in a moment. But just to give all of you the agenda for tonight, what we're going to be talking about. So we have from 5:30 6:30 is going to be just general information. Is going to be general information about the middle grades and kind of what we do. So this is going to be particularly important for the seventh graders because this is the first time you've had us. And middle school is quite a bit different than the elementary school program here. So it will really give y'all some insight into what we do as a middle grades team. For the eighth grade parents, it might be a little bit of a repeat, but it's still a good refresher because we're in person this year. And for most of you, we taught your students virtual for 100% last year. So first 30 minutes to an hour is just going to be general information. We'll be able to answer any questions that you have. And then from 6:30 to 7:30, so that second hour, that's going to be our high school application process meeting. Counselor Rice is going to come up and she's going to present with me. And we are going to discuss the high school application process, which eighth graders will be taking part in a couple of weeks. It's going to be great for seventh graders and seventh grade parents if you're able to stick around for that particular meeting because you'll be going through the same exact process next year. So it'll kind of be a jump start of information for all of you. We're going to do our best to work with the people that are in the room, but nice to meet y'all. Thanks for being here. And the people online. I am going to record the meeting, so if for some reason you need to leave or you can't stay for the whole time, I will post both of the meetings to YouTube so you can watch them back. But I think we're ready at this point. I'm going to mute myself so that the other teachers can unmute and just introduce themselves. Again, my name is Mr. Hudak. I'm the seventh and eighth grade English teacher here at Gompers.
I'm Mrs. Frazier. I'm the seventh and eighth grade math teacher.
Good afternoon, good evening. I'm Ms. Foster. I am the seventh grade social studies and ELA teacher and the eighth grade social studies teacher.
Hello, I am Elizabeth Villacara, Ms. V, and I am 7th and 8th science, and I also teach 7th grade math.
Ms. Frazier, you can come off mute.
Okay. Oh, I already introduced myself, but I'm Mrs. Frazier. And I teach 7 and 8 math. And I'm very excited to work with your kids this year.
All right. So at this point, I'm just going to, everybody virtually, can you all see the presentation on your screen? You should be able to see a presentation. Is that available? And for the people in the room, it's the one right up front on the board. Can we all see that? Okay. I see Ms. Frazier nodding her head. We're all good?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So let's get rolling. I'm going to try to keep this as quick as possible. If any of the teachers need to chime in about anything, feel free to just raise your virtual hand. If you have, hold on one second, Ms. Foster. If you have a question as well and you need me to stop on a slide, also please feel free to raise your virtual hand. It's at the bottom of the screen and it looks like this, right? So you can just raise that virtual hand if you need me to stop for anything. And I'm going to mute for Ms. Foster here. Okay. And Ms. Foster just asked again, if you could please put your student. So I see Deshaun, Amari, a couple other students' names in the chat. If you could just put your student's name in the chat so Ms. Foster can record your attendance, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go to the next slide here. So just to give you a general overview of our team, we all introduced ourselves. So we have Miss V, Science and Math, Miss Frazier, Math Specific, Miss Foster, Social Studies and ELA, and then I am also English Language Arts Specific. Mr. Klaus is our Learning Support Teacher. We have Mr. Jones, who is our Student-Based Teacher Leader for grades 4 through 8. And then we have our specialists down here as well. Your student will have 4 specialist classes throughout the school year. We have music education, physical education and health, digital literacy, and mindfulness. All right, so that's our team. Our school supports. You all know Mr. DeLuca for the most part. We have a new AP, new assistant principal, Dr. Pride. She's fantastic. Miss Atwell is one of my best friends because she keeps my behind in line. And anything you need in terms of like absences or questions about anything general, if you call in, you're going to be speaking to Miss Atwell. She's great. Miss Smith has moved into the dean position. We have a new counselor, Miss Rice. Mr. Parker's our community school coordinator. And then there are another number of other programs as well. So those are some of our school supports. And our vision, and this kind of ties into the second meeting we're going to have tonight at 6:30, the high school application process meeting. 7th and 8th grade is really the start of where we're going to help your students to plan for their future career. We really want them to get thinking about, what am I going to do when I graduate high school? Am I going to be, training for a trade, community college, a 4-year college? Like, what am I going to do when I leave here? Because in 8th grade, your student is going to be applying for high schools throughout the city, citywide and special admission high schools. So we really need to get to know what their strengths are, what they're good at, what they want to do in their future, so that we can make sure we get them into the high school of our choice. And that kind of leads into our vision statement. So our vision is to prepare all students for the high school, college, or post-secondary education and career of their choice. That is really our goal once your student gets into the middle grades at Samuel Gompers. Okay. I'm not going to get too much into this, but these are just some things we talked about with middle grade students at the beginning of the year. So some of the key words that we're going to focus on, the expectations, really high expectations, because again, we need to make sure that your students academically prepared. We need to make sure that they're socially prepared, they're emotionally prepared, all of these things for high school. And the way that we hold these high expectations is we hold students accountable. Okay? We hold students accountable, and we encourage students to be resilient. Everybody has bad days. We're going to have days where we struggle, but the next day you walk in is a fresh start for you. We don't hold things against students, but we do have high expectations and hold students accountable in this particular program. We oftentimes see that students are on the left side of this spectrum, where a lot of students come into middle school saying, I won't or can't do it. And those are kind of the two phrases that for us as middle school teachers, we really want to move away from. We want to hear at the very least that I can do it. I can do it, or at the very least, I'm going to try to do it, right? So I'm going to try as our starting point, and the I'm going to do it, I will do it, is really where we want your student to be. We're going to build their self-confidence, build their self-esteem throughout this time they have with us in 7th and 8th grade. So we really want to maintain that growth mindset. I can do it. I'm going to try to do it. I will do it, right? And what's important to us, number one, is you. We're a really transparent team. I know for me, for most of the teachers, not to speak on behalf of anybody, but we'll make phone calls. I prefer just texting. So I'll literally just text parents if I have questions. That's the way I like to communicate. It's quick, it's direct, it's easy. Some teachers will use Dojo. I don't want to speak for anybody else. We all have our preferred methods. Some teachers will call, but we're pretty transparent. And you are our number one concern. So we are here to support you, your student, your family, whatever you need. You are our number one concern. We want to make sure we're teaching students on grade level, right? Ms. Foster, did you have anything? So, Ms. Foster, I'll just say it again, because there's a lot of slides and I'm going to try to move. If y'all need to add anything, just pop your virtual hand on so I can stop. Okay. All right. Grade level academics and rigor. So we want to make sure that we're teaching your students on grade level as much as possible. If they're going to high school and they're going to be, learning 9th grade material, we don't want to be teaching them 3rd or 4th or 5th grade content, right? We want to do our best to make sure that they're getting grade level instruction in 7th and 8th grade. Social emotional learning. We just got out of a pandemic, right? Students have been isolated. They've been away from their friends. It's been a really difficult time for everybody. So being able to talk about, feelings, what we're going through, being able to communicate effectively, resolve conflict, all of those things are a big focus this year now that we're back in person after 18 months. We want to make sure we build rapport and relationships. It really all starts from here. We're not going to be good, effective teachers if we're struggling to build relationships with students. So that's really the foundation for us, is getting to know your kids, their strengths, their needs, their interests, and going from there. And then we do a lot of leadership and extracurricular activities and opportunities. We just had a student council meeting today, so that's available. There's Justice Council. There's girls group called HERD. There's boys group called Building Champions. Ms. Frazier, I believe, is starting a chess club. Like, there's a million different things that your student can be a part of if they want to do that. And especially the leadership activities will be really helpful for them. Not only does it look good when your student's going to apply for high schools, but it's really going to prepare them from a leadership stance. And I'm just going to mute myself and pause and shut up for a moment and let Ms. Foster, Ms. V, or Ms. Frazier chime in if they have anything.
All right. Good afternoon, good evening, parents as well. So as you can see on the slide, there is a new start time and a new dismissal time for students. Just be aware of this, that we want to make sure students are on time. That, like Mr. Hudak said, we have some social emotional learning that goes on in homeroom. And can your child check in with their homeroom teacher? Can they talk about some things that are going on at home in their community before we jump right into content? So it's just really important that your child starts on time, and then they'll be ending the day at the new time of 2:54. And just to throw in, Methodist has an after-school program that is 100% free if you would like your student to stay after school. And then also, like Mr. Hudak said, there are about 5 or 6 different after-school activities throughout the week. No worries. All right, so this is a long list about safety during the COVID-19 or during the pandemic and COVID-19 still happening today, that there are health screening opportunities that are available for staff and families and for students. One important thing I want to throw, if a student is sick, please do not continue to send them to school. If your child is running a fever or you feel as though there's something going on, they don't have taste or smell, do not send them to school. We are also requiring that students wear masks, and there are extra masks at school if necessary. And so these are just a couple of things. If you would like to take a screenshot, these are just some of the procedures and protocols that are going to be in place at Gompers. Also, we did have a back to school supply list. Please, please, please. We know Lysol wipes, the costs have gone up. And so in my classroom and in other classrooms, we wipe off the dust every time the students rotate classes. Therefore, I go through an entire roll in 2 to 3 days. So if you have access to your job, or if you have access to Lysol wipes or hand sanitizer and things of that sort, if you can make sure your student brings them to their homeroom teacher to be donated to the class. And if you need a copy of that supply list, it is posted on Dojo and can be emailed to you. All right, and I'll do one more and then I'm going to pass the mic right back to Mr. Hudak. So again, one way to get in contact with us, one is via Class Dojo, cell phones, text messaging, phone calls. As Mr. Hudak said, parents can text me, call me, as long as it's within appropriate, parameters of the school day. So between maybe 8 and 8, you can call or text. And then also we have Google Classroom that your student can put private messages on. So there's a couple of things of expectations that we do have for parents. Some of those include making sure your student has a designated place to learn, that you establish a routine for waking up and maybe going to bed, that you are connected to the Class Dojo so you can see all the great things that we have here at Gompers, that you are monitoring your students' attendance. So one of the things at Gompers is we like to keep our attendance at 95% or better, meaning your student can probably only miss up to one school day a month, which ends up being about 10 school days a year.
10 days or less is 95%.
So 10 days or less throughout the school year. So we know we don't want to send kids to school sick, but we also want to be mindful of students that are just staying home, or maybe there was a disruption to your sleep pattern, but still sending them to school. And also, let me see if there's anyone that's super, super important. I think the most important thing that we just kind of need from parents is that you connect with us, that there's something going on at home, something going on that would affect your students' learning, that you just communicate with us, and then we'll also be communicating with you as the parent of your student.
Perfect. Any parents, I know we're moving pretty quickly, but it's a lot of content to get through, so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Any parents have questions about anything we've discussed or talked about so far? And I know at least I will put our phone numbers in the chat, so you can have access to those as well at the end of the presentation, so you can reach out to us directly. Any questions so far? Give it a 5 seconds of wait time and then we'll move on. Okay. Again, I know we're talking about it a lot, but please communicate with us. Text messages, phone calls. Your student has Google Classroom. I'm going to post on Class Dojo as well how you, the parent, can create I have a handout for the people that are here. I'll post it digital. How you can sign up for a SIS account, a SIS parent account. SIS stands for the Student Information System. So you can actually create an account and view your students' grades for all of their classes live anytime that you want. View how many attendance, what their attendance is like, view all of that stuff anytime you need to. You can just sign in. Okay, so SIS is a great tool. And then again, we do use Class Dojo. That's really where you're going to see school-wide announcements. You'll see a lot more school-wide stuff, as well as Instagram. If you have an Instagram, at Gompers_cares, you can follow us on IG as well. So a number of different ways to communicate with us. Again, like Ms. Foster said, as long as it's within a reasonable hour of the day or night. For most teachers, I think it's about 8 and 6 or 8 and 8, something like that, depending on the teacher. And we'll get back to you. I'm going to post this presentation. It's actually on your student's Google Classroom. So you will have access to this entire presentation I'm going through. But here are the directions on how to create a Parent SIS account. Again, some of the things that you can do, you can view your student's grade live throughout the marking quarter, and it updates instantly when teachers put grades in. You can track their test scores. You can see their attendance, view all of these things live. So I'm going to pause for a second. Ms. Frazier has something to add.
I just wanted to ask, how long does it take for parents to do that? Like 5 minutes?
To create a SIS account?
Yeah.
I would say probably 5 to 10 minutes. It's not difficult.
That much, and it's very valuable. And once you do it, you're right in. You know how your student's doing. You can stay right on track.
Yep. Okay. So I will make sure that stepper goes home with your student. Again, Class Dojo. I sent sign up codes home with students from every single class, so they should have them. But now that you guys are aware they're coming home, I can send another round out. It's an app. You can communicate directly with us from there, or text. And again, at Gompers Cares, you can follow us on Instagram for school-wide announcements as well. And this is a big one. I'm not going to get too in depth, but basically, social media and bullying, middle school can be a really difficult time for all students. Early adolescence being what students are physically going through, emotionally, mentally. There's a lot of changes, a lot of challenges, and we need to make sure that there is a zero tolerance policy for bullying. Every year, we see it more so on the social media side. Students saying things oftentimes outside of the classroom. So we would just ask that you monitor your students' social media and make sure that what they're posting and what they're doing is appropriate. That tends to be the most serious stuff that happens in middle school, tends to be on social media. Every single year, we have at least one or two issues with that. So please, this is a joint effort between us and you at home. We can't really control what gets posted on social media, but what I like to tell all students and all parents who are home, when you post something, it is permanent. Even if you go back and delete it, if it was posted, it is there and it can be found. So any discrimination, harassment, racism, discrimination about sexual orientation, like any of that stuff is not really tolerable for us as a middle grades team, because this is a safe space for all students and we need to make sure that it stays that way. So please, please, please just be mindful of these two things: social media, bullying. We'll do our best here and we'll work with you to make sure that it is good at home as well. Ms. Foster, Ms. V, Ms. Frazier, you all are good? Okay. Here are student expectations. Ms. Foster mentioned this earlier: attendance every day on time. We start at 8:15. So your student should probably get here around 8 o'clock, 8:05 to have time to get breakfast and settle into the day. If students walk in my door any later than 10 minutes after 10:15, so about 8:25, I tend to mark students late. Latenesses add up. Two or three latenesses starts to add up and turn into full days. So please be mindful of that. We need students to be here on time. If they they're constantly missing the first 20, 30 minutes of instruction, that can become really problematic and start to affect their grades. Behavior, again, just students being responsible, accountable, building good habits, being inclusive of all students and all student identities. And there's a mutual respect that needs to go on, right? We want to treat your students as young adults, so long as we are able to treat them as young adults. When students start exhibiting lower elementary school behaviors and aren't meeting our expectations, then we tend to shift things and we stop treating them like young adults and we start treating them more like elementary grade students. So hopefully this will be a year that, another year, successful year where we can really get them ready for high school, having those middle school style routines. Academics, we're past the point of just doing your homework gets you points in your classes. It's not about just doing the homework. It's now also about quality, right? So please be mindful of that. We're looking for quality. We're looking for grade level work. We're not just looking for something to be rushed through so that it can be said it's done. That will not make the cut. Active participation, dress code and uniform. You can use Nom's Kitty World, which is a store for the polo shirts. We also, our online Gompers store is open until 11:59 tomorrow night. where you can order any gear. That link is posted on Instagram, Dojo, and flyers have been sent out. Here is the big one. All right. Cell phones in school. We are having a lot of problems at the beginning of the year with cell phones. I took about 6 phones today from students who are trying to sneak them in class, who are texting things. Once I took one of the phones, I saw that students were texting each other. A lot of inappropriate stuff during the school day, to be honest. And it is really inhibiting students' learning. We came into the year, I always like to come into the year with the out of sight, out of mind, right? If you keep it away, if you respect me, there's going to be no policy, it's going to be no issue, right? Keep it away, put it in your book bag, keep it in your pocket, and it's no problems. But increasingly, it's starting to become more and more of an issue on a daily basis. And I would say it's probably, I can't say this for certain, but it's pretty much so all 4 classes, R1, R2, R3, and R4, so 7th and 8th grade classes. We are asking, please have a discussion with your student about cell phone usage in school. No, it's a mutual respect thing. You know, we teach really hard. We work really hard to prepare lessons for your students that are engaging, that are interesting, that are going to prepare them. And it's quite frankly, it's just really annoying when the phones are out, when we're trying to teach important content. But also, it tends to turn into more serious issues as well, because now students are saying things that they shouldn't be saying about each other. It's happening in school. It might go to social media, and it just starts to snowball from there. So I'm at the point where if I start seeing phones, I'm just going to take them, and parents are going to have to come pick them up. If I have to say anything more than once for a student to put the phone away, obviously we need phones. We need to be able to communicate with our kids, make sure they get to school safe, they go home safe. But there's really no room for them during instruction while we're teaching. So I'm going to ask that please, you all please have a conversation about cell phones, because the policy is in place at this point. If we see them and it's disruptive, we're going to take them and ask that you come pick them up. Okay? Any teachers have anything to add about phones, or any parents have questions about phones?
We can take any questions from parents as well. But parents, I want you to recognize that your student has been home for 18 months where their cell phone has been at their side. And we have students who are not only on social media scrolling, but texting one another in other classrooms. And it's gotten so arrogant that the chimes are going off, flashes are going off, and students are even saying, that's my mom calling and texting me. So I hope it's not none of the parents on this call. It's the other parents, right? It's not none of the parents in the room. It's the parents that's not here. But hopefully you are not texting and calling your student during the school day expecting a response. So just keep that in mind. If your student, one of my rules is in my classroom is that it's in your book bag. It's not on the student's person. It shouldn't be in your pocket. It shouldn't be in your back pocket. And another thing, if they're broken or damaged, you come looking at the school wanting them replaced. You want someone to pay for it when students should have them away. So if there are any questions, parents can feel free to put those questions in the chat and I will be able to respond to them. Mr. Hudak.
I want to say it too, because it's very distracting in math. Kids are, and I have to say it so many times, put it in your book bag. We understand that they want to have their phone at lunch.
All right. And also, if you are new to logging on, please just put your student's name in the chat. Also in the chat, I just dropped the Instagram and I also dropped the school store. I'll put that in there again. Like Mr. Hudak said, the school store closes tomorrow at 11:59. All right. Mr. Hudak again has information about attendance and the number of days each month that there is attendance. And then also it looks like there are some reasons for absences. So like healthcare, therapy, illnesses, recovering from an accident, death, that entire list would include excused absences. What is not an excused absence I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Hudak, that parents can write notes saying why their student is absent, but that does not make it an excused absence in the system. Your student will still be marked absent. You are just informing the school that you know they were absent, they were not cutting. So an excused absence would require a doctor's note from CHOP, would require a doctor's note from your practitioner, but you writing a handwritten note, or parents that are savvy and type them, that is not an excused absence. That just lets the school know you are aware that your child was absent.
Foster normally will accept like 2 or 3, and then after that, it's only official notes at that point.
All right, so Mr. Hudak corrected me. We only accept 2 to 3 handwritten notes. After that, it is no longer an excused absence. You can come on in and have a seat.
Yeah, come on in.
All right.
That's me. That's you. Okay. That's me.
All right, go ahead to the next.
And Foster, I just want to say, as much as my behind would like to be on a cruise in the middle of the school year, vacations are not excused. We normally have one every year, and it's like a 7-day hit.
Yeah, going to Disney World is not an excused absence. We had parents tell me that last year during the pandemic. Great times for vacation, family. Winter break and summer. Those are a great time for vacations. And spring break and April. All right, so 3 or more days of unexcused absence, will equal a truancy, and there will be a letter sent home. 6 or more days, at that point, we start making phone calls. You would have heard from the school by that time. And 10 or more days is just being chronically truant. So let's make sure that we end up making home visits. We have Principal DeLuca and the leadership team. They eventually make home visits. And ultimately, some phone calls to the state are made when we cannot get in touch with you or your student. All right, so we talked about these norms: being on time, participating, asking for help. This is a big one. I recently had in my room a student who just sat back in the back. Oh, I can't see the board. Well, love, you got to move. You need to move closer, because we cannot just sit somewhere and say, well, I need help. I can't do it. I can't see. We have to make some action to help ourselves, and teaching students to advocate for themselves. That if we were somewhere, if we wouldn't just stand there helplessly and hopelessly, we would be asking for help. An expectation is for students to collaborate and cooperate. And then at home, it is an expectation that students have a routine, a schedule, a workspace, and also practice some self-care and studying. This is a big one. Reading your notes the day before the test is not studying. 8th graders who have a social studies test tomorrow, that studying takes place at least 3 to 4 days before your test. And overall, please do not procrastinate. Your students have 5 classes. 5. All right, so we're expecting growth and not perfection. And most of all, we're expecting effort. That again, we're not sitting there hopelessly. Mr. Hudak's cutting in.
So one of the things I want to say is, oftentimes students don't look at their specialist class as a grade. And when it comes to the high school application process, which we're getting ready to talk about in like 20 minutes, we've had students kept out of high schools, not get into some of their high school choices because they got a D in, gym, or an F in computers, or a C in or a D in mindfulness, right? So like, I understand it's a lot of work already between their 4 core subjects, English, math, social studies, science. I understand it's a lot of work, but also realize most high schools, they're moving to a 7 or 8 class schedule. They're moving from, a couple homework assignments a night, or maybe a couple a week, to homework every night in 7 or 8 classes. So this is a preparation for high school at that point. Foster, do you want to pick up?
Last but not least, attendance. When we talk about attendance, we're not just saying this. I remember at least 2 to 3 years, there was a student. She was president of student council, high grades, but she had about 13 to 15 absences. Those high schools that are special select, no, that's going to cut you immediately, just your attendance alone. So 7th grader parents on this call, they're looking at 7th grade attendance. They're going to look at 7th grade grades to make sure to see if your student is going to be admitted into the school. All right, so when we talked about extracurriculars a little while ago, Mr. Hudak said a million things. That looks like a list of about 10. So again, we have student council, which meets every Thursday. Justice Council meets at the school during lunchtime. Herd, my girls group, we meet each Friday, 3:15 to 4:15. Girls on the Run meets Mondays and Wednesdays. Building Champion is on Wednesdays.
Wednesdays, yeah.
All right, we have the 24 Challenge with Ms. Hill Rivera, Chess Club with Ms. Frazier, and we are always looking for room to add more clubs if any of those don't meet your students' criteria. What I say to parents, it is not good enough that your student just comes to school. They need to be involved in their school. That's how your students' grades go to honor roll. When they have ownership and they feel a part of their school. So look at this list and talk to your student like, hey, what are you joining? That at least one day after school, they're here. And there's also the Methodist after school program. That is 100, all of these are free through Gompers. All right, and Mr. Hudak, this is his baby, the high school application.
So I'm not even, I actually have a completely separate presentation. This is like the light work one. Well, I have like a 30 to 40 slide presentation tonight for my 8th grade parents and for my 7th grade parents. For those of you that, want to stick around and get some of this information earlier. So at this point, I would ask for all of the general information that we just reviewed. We just went over a lot of information. I'd like to open it up for parent questions, either parents that are in the room or anyone that's online. If you have questions about anything that we just talked about, I know it was a lot. Please feel free to ask and we can answer as best as we possibly can. If we don't have an answer, we'll figure it out and get back to you about it. But I want to open it up for questions at this point.
And we can also put our phone numbers in the chat if they want to text homeroom teachers.
Yeah.
And make sure the parents in the room will get all our phone numbers.
So teachers at this point are going to put their phone numbers that you can use to contact them in the chat. So I know a lot of the parents, we already have your number saved, especially a lot of the parents from last year. I got one mom shaking her head. she knows I'll call or text whenever I need anything, but and she'll do the same. So I'm just gonna put our numbers in here. Okay. If the parents that are on the call want to, save those numbers in your phone so you have them, and the parents in the room, we can just say our numbers for you guys in a minute, or make sure you have them in your phones as well. But at this point, we have about 15 minutes until we start our high school application meeting at 6:30. I wanted to leave some space in between so I don't lose my voice. I can take a break for a minute or two as well. If there are no questions, we're going to go on pause for now. Last call for questions for me, Ms. Foster, Ms. V, or Ms. Frazier. Any questions for us? All right, so at 6:30, in about 15 minutes, we're going to come back on live. I will be doing the presentation with Counselor Rice. I'll have Ms. Foster monitoring the chat, and I know I believe Ms. V and Ms. Frazier will also be available on the same link for any parents that come late or need to come to the school and talk. We'll be here. We're available till 7:30, but our high school meeting is going to be in 15 minutes. So thank you so much for being at this first little presentation, and we'll see you back for the high school app presentation at 6:30. Thank you again, y'all. 6:30 for the high school app.